Supermen.
All right, welcome back. How you doing, my brother?
Doing good, brother. How are you?
I'm good. I am a little nervous that I'm going to throw a little controversy our way during this episode.
Not between you and me, certainly. I think we probably have the same or similar controversial take on this song.
Yeah, so
Although I can't wait to hear what you come with.
yeah, I'm excited to hear your take on it too. So we've been doing this now for a couple of like a month or so, and maybe 2 months, and got a few comments and put out a request for people to tell us what episode we should do, what song we should feature. And we got a comment, and I honestly didn't think we would do this song. But the comment was, you got to do Get 'Em Out by Friday from the Foxtrot album in 1972. And I'll be honest, Get 'Em Out by Friday is one that I generally skip on Foxtrot. Now, I I have gained an appreciation for it. I understand its role in the kind of evolution of Genesis and its path, or at least the journey that they're taking on their path to the Lamb. I feel like it's a song that probably fits in perfectly with just the storytelling of the Lamb and everything that happens there, but just feel like there's so much going on in it that I haven't fully gained an appreciation for the um the musicality of it and the lyrics on top of each other. Separately, I think they're both just absolute masterpieces, and I think this is a really important song in the Genesis archives. But just feel like they were trying to do too much. And I don't think I'm alone on that. I think that probably old school Genesis fans are split 50-50 on this one, uh, where 50% of them just really love the role this song plays in the evolution of Genesis storytelling. And then there 50% like me is just like, hey, I get it, but there was a little too much going on. And generally I go to so many other tracks on the Foxtrot album.
Mhm.
So I kind of want to get your take on it, and then we'll kind of dissect it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that your opinion on that is popular. Um, eh, all the way back to the earliest kind of commercial reviews of the album. Of course, at this point, Genesis, they're getting kind of antsy, right? They haven't had big commercial success, and there's some question as to whether, their label is really interested in continuing down this path, right? You kind of get mixed feedback from the band themselves on that as to, how much pressure was actually on them during this album, creating this album. But by and large, what I hear is kind of a natural extension of the theatrical aspects of Genesis, right? I think they, I think one of the reviewers said it best. They were, basically said that they've managed to kind of evolve a little without losing the whimsy, and it's the whimsy that kind of shines through in this song for me, right? It's effectively a two-act play with three principal roles, all performed by Peter Gabriel, and so you could see where he he would be interested in this. Oh, I get to play three people. This is great.
Yeah.
But the song itself, just from a writing perspective, is pretty vanilla, if you can use that term for any Genesis song. It's a pretty straightforward rock song, up until the break, right, where we kind of transition into the future with that little ambient section. But for the most part, what stands out to me is that the majority of this song is done within the first 3 minutes, right? Which kind of makes it pop songy. And that might have been part of the idea is, we need something that just, there's more content up front. One way or the other, I think the bottom line is that the song suffers from a recording technique or a production technique that was employed on the song. And that is that the band would actually record all of the music prior to actually laying down any lyrics. And so by the point the lyrics were being put in, the musical layers were already there, and they were in 1972 not the easiest things to edit. And so, there's some question as to whether the musical side of this song is overstacked, right? There's just kind of a lot going on. And I think you mentioned that. More modern or a different take. And again, you might give them some credit for this being an experimental recording technique, right? And that's you win some, you lose some. This still, I think, is a great song. And I think it's a great song specifically for its lyrical content. I happen to really like the lyrics to this song. I think they're really well written, and the story that is told is very succinct, and it's one that you can very easily understand, even though I will say, brother, this is deeply rooted in the kind of geopolitics of Great Britain in 1972, right?
Yeah, but it still holds up. It holds up in my mind in today, just with the gentrification that we see happening, in major cities, and just real estate developers kind of getting their way when it comes to moving folks around and being able to hit their rubber stamp on their next project.
Hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And the aspects of humanity and how much humanism exists in the real estate business, the big, that big aspect of it. It resonates. I mean, we hear it today. There's certain billionaire real estate moguls who are concerned about their relevance in the afterlife,
Right.
And I think that that's a point that gets hit on pretty strongly in this song. So let's walk through just really quickly the story here. Consists of three primary individuals. A certain John Pebble, who goes unnamed throughout the song. So I think these actually come from the lyric sheet. These are probably what Peter Gabriel's notes. I'm not sure. The only one who's called out by name specifically is the Winkler, and I'd like to talk about that one a little bit more because that's a cool term. So you have John Pebble. He's a businessman. He's kind of the executive in charge of a large, I think they're called Styx Enterprises, which is again the river Styx, right? You gotta love it. Um, he's kind of the mogul here, and his right hand man, Mark Hall, his man, the Winkler, who is kind of his dirty deeds guy, right? He's the man who goes around and does the evictions. And then you have gentle, sweet Miss Barrow, who is the evictee in this case, and I guess the kind of the subject of our sympathies. Long story short, John Pebble is purchased, and his company has purchased Mrs. Barrow's street, all of the houses on her street, and they are intending to relocate these folks from that street to. Now, I would have to assume here, Jarrett, this would be one of the new towns, right? So, Great Britain in the 50s and 60s was working on kind of de-slumming, right? And kind of getting rid of these old Victorian tenements that had been stood up during the Industrial Revolution, right? You had this massive overcrowding in the big cities. So in order to alleviate that, they constructed new towns outside of the cities. Literally went out into the countryside and set up a town square and, built a town around it to relocate large portions of that population that were in these slums out of the cities. And in doing this, right, they moved businesses out there, they relocated factories, that sort of thing. But the bottom line is that, it wasn't always the best for everyone. And by 72, you're seeing a lot of kind of pushback on this from the populace. Most of the new construction was the classic kind of block housing, right? Block flats. So you had these big, kind of tall, nondescript looking buildings that were replacing these, um, you know, more, I guess, more characteristic city housing. So you hear that in the lyrics of this song, the kind of the complaint that even though they're telling us it's a better place to live, it's just not the same, and it's a big change in our kind of way of life, right? And it not necessarily an easy one. Um, so really, that is kind of the guts of the song. We hear kind of the interplay between Pebble and the Winkler and Mrs. Barrow um, as the events of the song kind of unfold here.
Well, and then you flash forward to 2012 through the instrumental interlude, and you get to an announcement from Genetic Control where now a humanoid height is being limited to 4 feet so that they can cram more people into the buildings that they're building. And it just takes a completely twisted spin. Again, I have a great appreciation for it because it just feels like colony of Slippermen stuff, that
Right.
is happening I mean, in a way, it's kind of like giant hogweed stuff, right? That's these interesting stories that are in Gabriel's head that he puts down on paper and gets them into the songs. And Mike Rutherford even said, like, look, it's a great lyric, a nice idea, an example of where we just had too much stuff on the song. And we're going to hear that in this album and the next album. We're going to hear where they have just too much stuff going on. And Rutherford says, I mean, it was such a great track without vocals. It sounded so good, but in fact, when the vocals came on, it was very clever and it was a great performance from Peter, but it was just almost too much. And the song suffered a bit from just too many good ideas in it. And I think that resonates with me. Of course, in the same interview, Tony then says, look, this was the second best song on this album.
Yeah.
So I think Tony was all in on just cramming. And in some ways that, it's you could make the leap that Peter was being brilliant enough to layer in too much here, the same way Genetic Control was layering in too many people into the housing project. And some would argue that that was his intent, was to take this amazingly intricate piece of music, lay too much on top of it, but almost in a ironic sort of way.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that. I definitely, listening back to this with the hindsight being kind of 2020. I get what they mean, but I don't hear this as an overly busy track. And I think that's just that because we're children of the later era that we are, right? And we've heard so much other music. But in 1972, Great Britain, this is a busy song, and so I have to say that I think it holds up much better than they expected it to at that point. Um, and for what it's worth, I think it's a pretty great song. And again, the use of the little instrumental break. I say little, it's a pretty extensive instrumental break that happens kind of after the meat of Act One has gone down. The fact that it is so whimsical, right? That it really does kind of give you that sense of time progressing and in its gentle way, that it's not a small progression of time. It's 50 years into the future. So, and then we have this story of, and that is kind of the other part of Peter Gabriel that you got to love, right? Is that this is a guy who's looking at the situation in 1972 and going, okay, this is absurd, right? They're not, you've got the Winkler who's winkling, right? That term, I just learned this, but it means to influence someone through a combination of enticement and threat. That is winkling. I'd
Interesting.
love to help you here, right? But you're really going to have to work with me because the guys downtown aren't super happy with you, but we can make this work. It's what the Winkler is doing to Mrs. Barrow, right? That look, you can't stay here. If you do, it's going to cost twice as much. We're going to raise your rent. And Mrs. Barrow agrees, right? I'll agree. I'll pay twice the rent. And then he says, well, no. That's not going to work either. We're going to have to destroy your house. And so here's 400 pounds and a picture of your new flat.
And then they move and they raise the rent anyway.
Right. And then they raise the rent again. So the absurdity of this, you see Peter Gabriel going, okay, well, this just continues to repeat. So where is it 50 years from now, right? And of course, they're cutting everybody in half,
right.
or shrinking them, or putting a genetic restriction on height.
Yeah, there's a tariff on height.
That's right. So what I do like is that he's pretty clear that they can only be 4 feet tall, and that at that size they can fit twice as many people in, right? Well, the average height in Great Britain in 72 wasn't 8 feet. So, they've already snipped down, it's that they're fitting twice as many people at 4 feet tall into a space that they're fitting normally 6 foot tall people or 5 foot tall people, right? So, it gets even worse.
All right, we're going to get into the song. I am curious to get your kind of musical knowledge on the song as it plays. We'll just talk over it a little bit when we have gaps in the busyness. But what I hear here is Tony's got his fast-paced melodic chords playing. He's doing counter melodies over Steve's guitar. I'm really interested to get your take on the small but powerful Hackett guitar solo in here, because it's one of the more distorted guitar solos that I've heard in these early Genesis albums. So however they get that effect is really interesting to me. I hear, Mike just playing a bass riff that doesn't sound like it should work with the rest, but it just does. And then knowing the way they put this song together, you've got, Phil doing some really snazzy things on the drums, and Peter, the flute playing in this is amazing. So you can tell that the 5 of them kind of got together. They put this down as a musical piece, and then Peter kind of came in later with the lyrics, which has been well documented. But as it plays, I'm really curious to get your thoughts on kind of what you're hearing and what's happening. Good. See, to me, this could be the beginning of any Yes song, any King Crimson song. Like, it's very perfect for this era.
Yeah. And this is the stuff that's selling. Right? Love how aggressive Peter comes in there. Just,
me too.
This is, of course, John Pebble.
At first, I thought this was a song about industry and working in a factory and like just getting out the products.
That's your American mind art at work.
Yeah, it took me a minute to like really realize they were kicking people out of their homes. I
like how the Winkler's got a bit of a Hackney accent. Right? He's just just lower class.
Yeah, Gabriel, for sure, you know, inhabited all these characters that he played across this entire journey of this album.
I love this groove, though.
Tony, I mean, it's the second best song on the album.
Yeah.
And this made its way into their live set for quite a while, so you know they all loved it.
This is the part that breaks my heart. His
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Barrow, right?
Yeah.
He uses the flute to kind of personify her. This is a technique very popular in classical music where, you know, Peter and the Wolf is probably the best example, where people, or animals in that case, are personified by the instruments. In this case, it's people.
Probably some of the best flute playing that we've heard yet.
Mm.
Central heating. I think we're going to find it hard. Now we got them.
Immediately changing characters there.
Cash, cash, cash. Don't do anything wrong. Work can be rewarding. When a flash of intuition is a gift that helps you excel.
Sell.
Yeah. I like that you picked up on that.
Here we are in Harlow, Newtown. Did you recognize your block across the square?
Harlow,
Yeah.
Newtown.
Over there.
Real place.
Sadly, since last
It is. It's one of the new towns.
Just a bit. This I can't believe. Mary, and we are grieved to leave.
Here's the guitar solo I wanted to get your take on.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's unique for this period for them.
Yeah, I think he's using really. If I had to guess, I would say it's a combo. It's clearly a fuzz pedal, but there's probably some early, like, I think he was pioneering an early phase pedal on this album, which is a phaser flanger.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be what that was in combination with a fuzz.
Nice job. We're putting you on the spot.
And here we go. We're in the time progressing
Cool.
phase.
Exactly. A little passage of time. This is the portion, this through the rest of the song, that just really gives me Lamb Lies Down on Broadway vibes.
I love this part. So subtle, right? You really get the sense that time is really, like, things are happening.
This is an announcement from genetic control.
It is my sad duty to inform ye of a 4-foot restriction on humanoid height.
I love that you're laughing because Peter's
absurd.
humor,
Yeah.
it doesn't always land, but when it does, it's great.
I should point out this is the fourth person. Joe Everybody. It's his name. He's discussing this in the pub, in the local pub.
Yeah, when everyone
Pubs
realizes
Yeah.
what genetic control is actually doing.
Yeah.
His genetic control character sounds a little bit like Moribund the Burgermeister from his first solo album.
That's true. Yeah, I hear him as just a worse version of the Winkler. Like the Winkler's just gotten worse.
I think I fixed a new deal. A dozen properties we'll buy and
And the Winkler back on.
celebrated more. Some are still inhabited. It's time to send the Winkler to see them. He'll have to work some more. With land in your hand, you'll be happy on earth.
End on these very sacred.
Yeah, what is that? Like scripture at the end? Like the last two lines.
It's noted apparently in the lyric sheet for the album. It's this stanza is listed as a memo from Saint Peter, but it's actually written as from Satan Peter. So that part is a memo from Saint Peter.
All right. But
So that's Saint Peter actually telling John Pebble that he's done things right. Yeah, he's telling him that with the money that you win on Earth, you invest in the church, and that's how you'll get into heaven. Right. This is a very popular concept. It goes all the way back to the Middle Ages, right? Where if you were landed baron or an earl or a duke or whatever, you could sponsor an abbey, and then the monks would pray for your soul for the next, however long you lived. And that's how you would get into heaven, is that you could slaughter your enemies and, fornicate and do all the bad things that are awful according to the Bible, but still make it to heaven because you used your money for some good, apparently.
The satanic references, I guess, will pop up again in Supper's Ready, which we're feverishly working our way towards. So, good stuff. I don't know. Maybe I was wrong, because I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that just now, and agree with you that it's not too dense. I think maybe it needs to grow on you a little bit. So if you are in that 50% that's out there, that's like, hey, I'm with you. Like, I skip this song when it comes on. Give it another try. Especially now that you know a little bit more about the story and what it is that they're trying to evoke emotionally with this song. And I think, Jake, you kind of hit it when you said this part always makes me so sad. I mean, that's what you want from your art, right? You want the feelings to come with it. And not only did we feel sad during that song, but we kind of giggled a little bit during it at certain parts. And it's like, you don't get that from other places that often. You don't get that from music that often. And so maybe we should just shut up and enjoy it.
Yeah, that's well said, Jarrett. It's, I think it's the over-analysis that goes into these things sometimes. And, this is a band, again, these guys have been touring feverishly, right? They're playing 300 shows a year. they're tight. As a band, they're tight. They know each other. They don't have to look at each other anymore. They just know, Pete's gonna hit this, and Phil's gonna hit this, and Steve's gonna be there. Just that's something. And what they're doing in this song, to me, is they're exploring the space that kind of environment has created for them, and I think that's cool. And I think it shows in this song. Maybe it's that the song is a couple of years ahead of its time, but I don't think it necessarily gets the credit it deserves. And I appreciate your comments. If we've turned you around a little bit there, Jarrett, then today was a success, right?
Yeah. I mean, just generally speaking, I like really pretty songs, or I like driving rock songs. And that one tries to do a whole lot. But, I've been on this early Genesis journey here now for about 2 years, and there's plenty of pretty songs. There's plenty of driving rock songs. And there are some amazing, dense storytelling songs that I really enjoy and have come to appreciate. I mean, you heard us gush over Hogweed a few weeks ago. We've got several coming up on the next album, Selling England by the Pound, which, by the way, a lot of this kind of political reference that they get into with Get 'Em Out by Friday starts to really ramp up on Selling England by the Pound. But they, this one for me particularly was always one that I just didn't quite get, and now I kind of get it, and I appreciate it a lot more, and hopefully the listeners out there get it and appreciate it a little bit more as well.
That's awesome. Well, it's certainly been a fun one.
Yep. All right. Well, we are Mild Mannered Supermen. Until next time, I am Jarrett.
I'm Jake.
And we will catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening, and that's it.
Mild Mannered Supermen, Mild Mannered Supermen.